Yeah, so this is nominally, our sixth session, our last content for App Workshop, and in some ways it's a return to the first, but looking more at the front-end rendering and maybe a little bit more at the client side than the server side, although we will take a look at rudder and sail and some other things as we work through that. Sail's one that's actually, I don't think we've really talked about at all, but it's an interesting representation. And what I've been thinking about doing long-term is actually just trying to run App Workshop as like a monthly event and keep things going that way, because most of this content doesn't directly build on the previous lesson. A couple of them did, but in general, I think we could keep this going where, once you're done with App School, then there's always just next content. It's kind of like running a grad seminar, and we'll always have things to talk about. There's a lot of things we can invite people in for. It's kind of like the old developer calls used to be, except a lot more in the weeds about the code in some ways than those were able to be given the format. All right, we are going to be looking at front-end renderings to the browser. We are going to start off, we're going to look at two of the apps that are what has been billed on the developer side as Lightning apps. The original genesis of these was a request for some tutorials that were basically 15-minute nose to tail. You've built an entire Urbit app if you followed the instructions here, but you don't really have to understand what's going on. You don't have to know Hoon yet. This is just, how do you build an Urbit app, right? Like, how do you actually stand this up and get an Urbit app to run? I think this is an interesting idea, although I think in practice, partially because we haven't really pushed it in advertising, I think these haven't functioned that way as much as we had perhaps hoped when Tennis Natbus wrote these originally. So I'm going to rope them in here, and eventually I may actually put them into App School in the next iteration of that. But both of these show off different features of constructing an Urbit app with a front end that I think are worth some attention. And let me go ahead and share a Moon that has a running instance of this. Let's see. So we're talking about, get out of the way, Zoom. All right. All right. So I'm running a Moon. If you wanted to say hi to it, and that might actually be helpful when we get things going in a minute, because this is a groups app. This is Pilbin Moglev Lagrev Nakfep. Let me get the chat open and drop that in for you too, in case you want to install this. Like I say, I would recommend installing this one on a Moon, just given what it is. And so Squad is an app. The front end is written in Sail, so we're going to look at Sail and how the front end is built in a moment. And it allows you to join a named squad on someone else's ship. This is kind of like, it's a simple groups management application. It's kind of like PALS. It's arguably a little bit cleaner of an interface than PALS. It looks like there's some CSS on these buttons and so forth, but it doesn't have tags or anything, so it's still very bare bones in putting these things together, right? So if I wanted to create a squad on here, I could just go ahead and mark it public and hit create, and it gives me a list of people in my current squad. So if someone else were to have this app installed, and actually you can install it from Pocwet, bar install sig Pocwet send squad. And then if you want to go ahead and install it in the background while we're talking through this, before we look at it, you can also install Hut, which will be the chat app So if we're going to build a chat app, everyone's going to look at a chat app, since we have so many of those on our. All right, so you're able to build squads. It looks like the default squad, the Hello World squad, is populated with a bunch of random bits that effectively are comments. There's 128 of them plus me in building that. There's criticism that can be made of what the output and how the output chord is being built here, but this is basically what happens. I can't add anyone, but I can mark it as public and someone can join it as a result of that. So if someone were to have this app installed and join Pilbin Maglev Lagrev Knockfap /app workshop, I could type that, then it gives them something to join. Right, so it's out here. And it looks like we actually don't, oh no, we do. We can blacklist people preemptively here, but it's a simple interface, but it is a responsive interface, right? Like it's actually doing things in the client session directly rather than requiring a refresh the way some other apps, single page applications can do for you. What I wanted to look at as we were going through this is basically like what is the code for this actually look like as far as the front end rendering goes. And we're going to be working through this. It is located in urbit/docs examples. And we're going to be going into Groups app. Let's go ahead and go to full desk. Yeah, I'm guessing some of this stuff is probably, yeah, okay, that's just a link back out. All right. All right. The two main files we're interested in, actually, per my dogma, we need to look at the structure file first. Let's see, these are all bare desk. All right, let's look at raw. Zoom in a little. All right. So we have a set of actions and updates. We have a group ID. We have title. I don't know what title's doing here. That's separate from group ID. We have a set of people, which are the actual members. Okay, so then a squad is a title and whether or not it is public, and then there's a map from group ID to squad. Okay, so it looks like that is a separate. Oh, okay, I can set a name here in title, and this is a separate value that's set there. Okay, so my actions, I can create a new one, I can delete one, I can allow a ship, I can kick a ship, I can join a foreign one, I can leave one that I'm a member of, I can mark it public, I can mark it private, I can change the title. Okay. So in this case, hearkening back to an old terminology, our actions are our verticals, our client server operations, and then our updates are our peer-to-peer operations. They're our horizontals. So our updates here, we can initialize a squad. What's the difference here? Not clear why we have an init all and an init, why those are both included, but maybe that'll become clear when we look at it. We can delete, allow, kick, join. Okay. Oh, init all might be, this might have to do with subscribers or something. Anyway, we'll see what happens to do with that. All right. And then let's go ahead and look at the app first. All right. Less boilerplate than we're accustomed to. Okay, the state that we're going to maintain here, we're going to maintain a list of squads, an access control list or a group of access control lists, a set of members, and a page which is going to be used in our rendering. So it looks like we are just using agent.io And then we're building the index page directly. So we're not even using rudder or anything. Like we are directly building this page, directly interacting with this page. So from a front end perspective, that's going to be interesting. This is going to be close to the minimal working example in how to build this. All right, let's see. Hut uses init all watch path at on init. Okay, so we'll get down to that in just a moment here. All right, our standard boilerplate. Something I have not emphasized a lot. There's a library called Agent.io, and it handles a lot of card operations and so forth. And we're going to see it throughout here. And it wraps things in pretty thin code, right? There's actually not a lot of, let me see if I can find that library file really quick. There's not a lot inside of it, but it can make code more readable. It obscures like this is what your card looks like, but it makes it easier to write intent. So I've been playing with the idea of, base stub maybe. I've been playing with the idea of starting to use this more and publicize this more. So for instance, one of the operations that we're going to do here is, okay, so on init, let me highlight that so it's clearly visible here. Quip card this, col cap this, so we're not changing any state, and then we're making a list of cards. And the way we're building the list of cards is we're actually invoking things against a door, the sample to which is the path we want to associate with that card. So this is a different way of writing a card than what we've done previously here, where I like how he has a special carve out for Paquet, which is the publisher. But like what we're doing here is we are saying we're going to pass the card to air to carry out this connection, but we're going to pass it through Agent.io. So when we go over to Agent.io and we find, let's see, I guess this was Arvo pass IO fas bind. So this is what this is going to do here. It's going to accept a note Arvo. The wire was provided as the sample to the door. And so we're going to build it this way and pass the card this way. And what we get out is a card, right? A card agent gall at the other end. So it's an interesting set of constructions. Some of these kind of feel like overkill, like why not just build the card yourself? I think it's worth the experiment to see whether or not we like this in the long run. It's been around for ages, and a few agents in the base desk use it, but not commonly. But there's been some argument recently that we should be using it more than we have been. Plus, there's some neat things like if you want a weight, then this is how you would set up a weight card, and so forth. So some of these are wrapped in a nice way. Yeah, so we will see these throughout this. All right, let's see. On save, nothing special. On load, nothing special. On poke, let's come back to on poke because it's kind of it's long. Okay, this is a good case for a helper core. On watch, on agent, handles a watch act, a kick, a fact. And then the fact can be all of our updates. So this is where we're going to delete or allow or join or whatever on leave. On peak, on Arvo. Okay, basically not a lot special in those. We're just going to look at one of the on pokes to orient ourselves. And then we're going to focus on how the front end is built, because that's the meat of this. What do we call the front end? Index. So let me see if one of these refers to index. Yeah, okay. We have a few of these that are. Where is index redirect coming from? Okay, so all right. Well, let's come back to that. Let's go to All right, so we on poke, we get a mark and a vase. So it comes in as a cage or a mark and a vase, pair of mark and vase. And we check on types here. And if it's an action, then we're going to pass it over to the handle action arm. If it's a client interaction, then we're going to pass it to handle HTTP request, handle HTTP. So handle HTTP is going to do this regular, it's going to, unwrap the inbound request stuff from air, make it available to you. And okay, then we're going to switch on the method. If it's a get or a post, we saw this a couple months ago when we were looking at this for the first time. And let's say we have, okay, so if we're going to get, then it's going to make the page. It's going to update the page with the bunt of the page. So it's going to clear the page based on whatever it expects there. Then it's going to make 200. So a server 200 is a correctly working server page, 200 success code. There's a request ID, and then there's the whole glob of information that presumably is built into that page. Let's look at make 200. All right. So let's see, make 200 here, takes the request ID, it takes the data, returns a list of cards. And the card is going to be a give HTTP card, which we saw a moment ago down here. It's going to take the request ID, so it associates with the correct client session, a message 200, content type HTML, content length, p.dat, so build the page there from that info, and then pass it all into give HTTP, which, let's see, that's going to take dat unit aux and actually build that into here. Now, where are we referring to index? Most of these are index redirect, so the page index we actually don't refer to very much. Yeah, just on the get. So that's everything else is an index redirect. So we're gonna have to look at how the redirect there. Actually, while I'm looking at this, do we actually have any? It doesn't look like we have any iris calls. So we'll see that in a minute with band when we look at band in a moment. All right, let's look at what the full desk app squad. Index. All right, bare desk. All right, so this is let me go back to raw. All right, so this, about this long, this is what's actually building our page. So this is a gate. It's going to accept the bool because it wants to know things like ship identity, accepts a list of squads, access, permissions, ACL's access control list, members, and then the actual page association, which is that page entry in the state. It's going to return ASOX MIMES HTML, so it's going to build this from a chord. So we're going to crip on NXMLing a Manx. All right. This right here, if you have not run into Sail before, then welcome to Sail. Sail is the Hoon native representation of HTML. It generally there's a set of things like Manxes and Marls and some other types that get put together into this. Basically, these are tags and tag attributes and tag content and different ways of handling these. The advantage is, one, that it's valid Hoon. Two, that you don't have to remember closing tags. Most tags that take a defined number of elements automatically close, and you don't have to just worry about them. A few of them, like body and HTML and head, do have a tis to close them out at the other end, but you don't have to keep the, conceptually, obviously you have to keep the nesting string, but it's trying to do something like JSON over XML, where you can throw away half the tags and get a file that's literally half the size because you're not using HTML or XML to represent this. So when you build things using this, it does turn into regular HTML. A Manx is an element. And so, the top level element of an HTML file is the HTML, right? It's the whole thing wrapped in that HTML value. When you're building a web page, your main two components are you're going to have your header, and then the body with the content of it. The header's your metadata, collecting things. So you can see here that, let's jump over here. And I'm going to compare what we're building here. So, because unfortunately, of the many things that we have and do not have, we do not have a direct sale to HTML. Well, you could build one through various paths, but we don't have like a single gate. And I don't want to do this live while I'm doing it. So I'm just going to show you what this renders to. All right. That should mostly give you an idea there. And then there's a style tag. So let me include the style tag. And okay. So if you have a tag name prefixed with a semicolon, then it automatically becomes the tag label, right? The main label. If you have a colon and then a value after it, then that's the text content of it. If you just have something inside of it that is another Manx or list of nodes, a Manx or a marl, then you can nest things inside of each other. So that's functionally that's what's happening with head, right? Like we have things inside of head here in terms of what's going on. If you have parentheses after it, then these are attributes. Everything that's inside the parentheses are attributes. If whatever you have ends in a semicolon, then it is a self-closing tag. And those are basically the rules. And you can, it's a little bit of a pain sometimes to get used to it. It's not really terrible when you start working with it. So sorry, there's just like 3 pickup trucks that are, I think it's utility workers on the power line in front of my house. So I guess if I lose power suddenly, we know who to blame. Okay. All right, let's see. So this is how this is built. Okay, so now the advantage, actually 2 things. There's not a good example of it here because everything is built. Yeah, there's stuff like this. So anything that's not part of a tag is a tape. And so, if I were to interpolate, like now.bowl, something like this inside of it, this would be directly interpolated into the text as a tape. So everything inside of this that's not recognized as a label or an attribute name or what have you, that's part of the HTML XML standard, everything that's not part of that will get turned into a tape. And sometimes this leads to interesting consequences when you're trying to figure out what is the right way to do this. So I've had a web page render, and it like literally rendered something like trip my value like on the page rather than what I was trying to turn this into. So sometimes you have to play games to figure out exactly what it thinks, because there aren't quotes around this, so it's a little bit hard to think about what's going on. useful thing about this is that you can have gates or traps or what have you, other arms that result in elements or lists of elements. And these can be directly inserted into your code. And so for instance, here, when we're building squads, we're actually building them straight out of a turn on sorted tap by squad. So squads is your I guess it was a map. Yeah, so it's a map from group ID to squad. So tap by squads is going to get us this as pairs of group ID and squad. Then we're going to sort this by this gate. Yeah. So we're going to sort this by this gate and then run it on squad component must be defined as an arm farther down, because I don't know exactly what that's going to be right there. I guess, oh, that must be a gate. It must be a gate that we're passing this information to, because we're turning on this list of information with squad component. So this is what's actually generating the HTML that singly represents each value. Yeah, so Nordis Mockwell says sales fun. When you get to doing the CSS, you can do a lot of sassy CSS stuff like variables, right? So when we are building this, there is like right here, it just says style. Like getting your MIC-less and your MIC-faz and your MIC-tar and all these straight is kind of a pain, but there's a bunch of MIC runes that do this. So style is just included here. Well, what's style? Well, it's an arm. So we're going to go look up style. Here's style. It's a tripped value here. Yeah, triple quoted. So this is a chord, and this is just here's my actual style. So yeah, you could programmatically build this because this is a chord. You could modify this, right? Like there's nothing to do in this particular instance, but you could, right? There's nothing to stop you. Ketsig, what's Ketsig doing there? What does Ketsig do for us? Anyone run into Ketsig before? This is basically caching it. It's saying calculate the result of this once and hang on to it, because we're going to keep referring to it again and again. So it saves you building the style more than once. Does it matter for a chord of this length? I don't know, maybe, but you'll see those things going on. Let's see. Another one was, let's go back to that turn. So here we're passing the pairs of title and group ID and title to squad components. So let's see squad component. Let's see what that renders here. All right, it's going to return a Manx, and a Manx was our basic element. And it accepts a group ID and a squad, and then it's going to build kind of a fussy little, yeah, there's a summary element, there's an H3, there's a div. What did this actually look like in practice again? I guess that's this. This is a squad component, is this information. So what we should look for is yeah, so there's our style information, our classes code for our group host ID, and our name, which we know. So there's our ID. Let's see if we can figure out like where the members list is being generated. Squad members component. Okay, so squad members component, you come down here. Okay, members, a Coco length members, so the number of members you have here, and then turnover, building all these things. But ultimately, right, like ultimately what we're doing is we're building a Manx that's a turn based on our members, that is a span class ship member span, so it picks up in whatever our CSS is, and then the title of my ship. This is actually where it's what we could probably punch this up a little and come up with something that isn't quite as ugly as we could add some spaces and so forth between these. I'm actually curious too, where is the default? When this is built for the first time. Yeah, squad is fun. Let's see. No, I'm just curious where it's building this list of comets that gets added here, these random ships. And it wasn't an on init. Anyway, I'm not actually sure where those are. Oh, another interesting aside. Has anyone seen the Jew arm? There's a jaw and a Jew, or a ya and a yo. These are jars and jugs, which is like list of maps and list of sets, or I forget exactly what they are, but anyway, they're basically special handlers for maps. Let's see. Yeah, jar is a map of list and jug is a map of set. Yeah, that's right. So they're special handlers, kind of like BI by for MIPS and so forth. Okay. Yeah, so the neat thing is the squad does everything it does in pure right? Like it doesn't, we don't have to have any JavaScript, we don't have anything else going on. It just works, it just operates. So as a proof of concept, it's a neat application where it is building these things. It's kind of overwhelming to look at this up front and see that there's a lot going on with this, but every one of these at bottom is a sales style. Here's a single value, it's a Manx, and I'm just composing all of these back up programmatically to build a custom web page for what I need inside of this, like, honestly fairly short base page here. Now Hut, on the other hand, let's see if Hut's going to behave for me. There's that workshop. Okay, so Hut lets me have, yeah, so hi Nordis. Let's see. So I should be able to create a chat. Might take a minute for that to synchronize. Okay, there we go. There we go. I won't change that there. All right, so now if I go in here, all right, so now we have a chat app. It's only going to keep track of the last 50 entries, so it's a pretty minimal. Yeah, I guess it sort of like sits halfway between something like rumors that just burns based on what's on the page, and something like groups or whatever that keeps it forever. You all saw that we have search as of today's release. This is kind of nice. All right. Let's go over to chat app. All right, build a chat app. Okay, now the difference in the chat app is for what presumably are stylistic choices, just because we wanted to demonstrate more than one thing. This one is actually a React app. Okay, so this is a regular JavaScript front end that's doing everything that you see with Hut here. So this is no longer built completely Hoon side. It's built to know about and interact with via what's in Squad, but it doesn't do anything completely Hoon side. So it's just going to be operated through pokes and pub sub subscriptions in any case. I don't recall anything particularly special about this. Yeah, here's our structure file. Messages, name. All right, there's our actions, there's our updates for each other. Let's see, this was our, yeah, so it includes squad because we expect squad. Incidentally, since I've been thinking about Hoon Prime lately, which is a proposal for a user space subset of Hoon, this is a good example of literate programming where we're actually explaining everything that we're doing directly in line. Like here's, like, if you read this file, you could figure out what's going on with this file. Yeah, so it switches based on whether or not you have a local or a remote. There's a handler for local options, posting a message, joining a chat, and so forth. And there's a separate handler for remote requests. So this is an interesting way of handling permissions, right? Where you're simply saying locally, I have certain things I can do, and everything is segregated at the level of that wet call right at the top. They're just simply two branches of expressions that I can access as a result of what I'm doing here. The downside of this is that there is no permissions, like you can't delegate permissions to anyone else. You know, as a minimalist proof of concept, this is fine, but in practice, we probably want something a little bit more complex than this. And when user space perms drop, maybe we should take a crack at updating this app to work with those rather than just the simple local remote operations here. All right, and this is all, like I say, pub sub, which means it's subscribing to paths along a wire, or it's poke driven. So we're not going to see the built sail front end in this particular case. Now the React app does this kind of business here where you're subscribing. You have to pull in the Urbit HTTP, HTTP API and operate on that. And then there's this set of registrations that you have to do, and then you're registering to a particular agent. It's labeled app, but it's an agent, and then the path along which you're doing it, the error handler, and then take care of monitoring what's going on. So there's a poke handler. There's a join handler that's going to unwrap it from the JSON when it gets it back. There's a subscribe handler. Barring that, we're in many applications, we're going to be doing things that are more complicated. We're going to be getting pokes and GIFs and so forth that are going to do more than what this toy app shows off. This basic pattern of just wrap your Urbit code in these little encapsulated functions is a really good design pattern for remote, client-side front-end operations. Use effect. I don't want to get deep into JavaScript because this isn't a JavaScript class, but it gives us an idea here of, kind of like what's involved with setting this up. It's like, it's not that much code in terms of the JavaScript to actually build it. What about nouns? Are you talking about like noun channels? Or okay. Yeah, I don't know anything about the practice of noun channels yet, other than that they are starting to be experimented with in what's going on. The nice thing about noun channels is, assuming you can write a client that knows what a noun is and knows how to manipulate it, you've solved one of your problems, right? Like you don't have to wrap everything in a JSON, send this JSON out, and then deconstruct it on the other end, right? JSON works as a lingua franca, but it requires both ends to correctly structure things and send them to each other. I don't, like JSON is a reasonably good representation. Like it's far more compact. One of the problems with JSON is that it's like what Urbit speaks is not actually JSON. By which I mean Urbit represents labels in JSON as terms and so forth. Whereas in JSON, these things are UTF-8, and lots of things go. If it's not syntactical, then you can do a lot with it. You can do a lot with capitalization and so forth. And so Urbit is automatically forced into working with this subset of possible JSON labels. And I'm not aware of any APIs that it breaks against because of this, but I think the possibility is certainly there for it to have that problem in the long run. The parts that use chords wouldn't have that problem as much. Anyway, with noun, so if you go look at like the snake build party with Mopful Winrux, it's pushing nouns to Python. It's not doing the air noun channels, but it's a similar sort of idea. It's doing it through lick, basically as a noun channel. So you push a noun out, and there is a Python noun library that knows how to unpack it into, here's my values, but then they're basically, here's my tree of atoms, right? My tree of cells and atoms, and I have to take those and reinterpret those back into values in Python. So, like improving that library over time. Fraudwith has a library that's better, but I think that was not the one that was used when we did that build party for whatever reason. Anyway, so the other problem with JSON has been that JSON has been slow. But now the JSON converters are also jetted. So we added noun air noun channels and JSON jetting at the same time. So we both strengthened and weakened the case for using JSON simultaneously in Urbit. So, if you want to use JSON, that's fine. It's fantastic. John is releasing soon that Litlep Nivite wrote. Is she here? I don't think she's here today. She's been to some of these. This one lets you give it a JSON example. It's a generator that you give a JSON example, and it writes the parser that would correctly pull this out. So that's going to get released soon. We're going to have a note about that in the battery payload newsletter, which should come out this week. There is some public code. I want to see if we can actually get it in the yard desk when I get the yard desk put together and actually pushed, but we'll see where that ends up. All right, let's see. There's blog and board that we can look at as well. I'll give you the code for those anyway. Blog is pretty straightforward in that it is just basically storing a big chord. Yeah, so the files of it are, you give it a path, and it gives you one of an HTML or a Markdown. One of those overrides the other if it's present, and then a theme, an associated theme for that particular file. And so blog actually doesn't do any processing or validation. It is purely, if you ask it for a path and that path exists in this map, then it will hand back the HTML to the browser. It's not doing anything else with it. It's simply, here's an HTML value. So if I were to, there's the draft stuff. Yeah, so let's just look at publish. So if I were to publish in blog, then my state update is going to look like put by files path, and then the things that are associated with it, right? Like really, really straightforward, and then weld it with the response junk and everything that it would normally expect. Stop this. Sorry, I'm out of, there we go. Okay. I'm not sure how it handles drafts. So, okay, so it has a drafts collection. And when you unpublish, it looks like it does not necessarily go back to drafts. Okay, it's unclear to me if unpublishing something takes it back to drafts or not. Anyway, but it's pretty straightforward to build. Let me see if I can find the HTTP front end. Let's see. He may actually be doing that stuff in a JavaScript blob. But I don't think so. I think this is just, yeah, I'm not actually sure where he's rendering it there, where the front end's grabbing it, because I don't see an error handler offhand. Themes gets registered. But when I poke, if it's a blog action, it shows up. If it's not a blog action, I don't know, maybe those registers peaks. Anyway, Nordis Mockwell asks, did I ever find a better way to construct an RSS feed? Well, fundamentally, the problem with the RSS feed is RSS feed expects metadata, right? Like it wants to know what's my title, who's my author, all this kind of junk. Theme is the extent of the metadata that blog supports. So if Duchess wants to upgrade blog to have metadata, then there will be a good way to do an RSS feed. Otherwise, we end up doing what we did in that build party, which is we just like search for, is there text after an H1 or a markdown single hacks, which is incredibly hacky, but an attempt was made to construct a coherent RSS feed. So anyway, that's where that one's sticking there currently. And I wanted to look at band. Yeah, I think programmatically what we were doing with RSS was fine. It's just we didn't have the metadata to like completely fill out an RSS. Was the long and short of that. All right. So band is an interesting one. Dumbest possible Stripe integration for Urbit. This was actually the original build party. This was the original, like, can we build an app in a day? And it turned out it took us 2 days because we were trying to figure out some of the proxy stuff with redirects and everything. But what band is going to do is, I don't know if he still has it up. I wouldn't remember what the site was if it were up. But what band is going to do is render a page that has, is this empty? Yeah, this is empty. So I guess the whole thing's rendered inside of this. Yeah. So it has like an inventory, it has content. And yeah, it registers a few things, and then it talks to Stripe to carry out a transaction. So you can put something in the page, let someone buy it, and successfully have them check out and then redirect them to a success page or a cancellation page based on what's going on. So there's 4 bindings here. This version of band does not have anything for sale because we didn't want to dump the yeah, actually this is the terrible thing here. What does our page actually look like? It's a single HTML string as a tape that's then crypted into something. So anyway, if you go to, so if you're going to get based on the URL that you're going to get, if you're at the base page, then you're going to see the base page information. If you're at cancellation, you're going to see the cancellation page. If you're on the success page, you're going to see the success message in each of those cases. But then what happens is you have to set up the post request so that when someone completes a transaction, right? So they're on the page, and we don't have like a separate shopping cart and everything. There's just like, there's an item, it's for sale, enter your payment info. When that happens, then it's going to pass in this create checkout session to Arvo, and it's going to pass it to a vein that we don't use very often, which is Iris. Iris is the client vein. And what this is going to do here, this is the test key for the Stripe API. It's going to push the information to Stripe about, here's my transaction. Here's my info about this transaction. And then it is going to redirect to the success page. And it does it with this localhost business, which is kind of interesting. It's going to redirect to the success page, personalized for you. And then if you fail, it's going to redirect to the cancellation page. But essentially, this is setting up a redirect, right? Like a forward proxy kind of situation, so that when you succeed, Iris automatically knows where to route you for your next page, right? Like based on what you're going to get from your Stripe handler and so forth. We didn't have a separate error page and everything. This is just, everything goes to cancel if it fails. And then some of it goes through, there's also like create checkout session, which is the HTTP response finish. So this is a part of our handler here. So this is an interesting example in that, 205 lines, it has the integration. It actually, this is, honestly, we could simplify a lot of stuff out of this. This is just boilerplate that I think we actually never use. I certainly don't see where we would use it. So that's the eng is the helper core that's referred to there. Oh, it's used in onload, but I don't think it's used anywhere else. So this is a matter of connecting these pages together as series of facts, as HTTP responses. These are, these facts with the header and the data are passed out in order, and then it kicks automatically. So to the client session, what's going to happen is when you initiate something, you're going to subscribe for the response, and then it's going to give you the response, which will be, did you succeed or fail? What's the contents of your page, which is front end, I guess FRNT is what front end is, whatever this renders to, and then kick you. So it's doing that pattern again of give you this set of facts and kick you. And then if you want to continue interacting, you have to come back and do that again. You have to come back and resubscribe. So that's what band gets for you. Another front end example that's a good simple one is board. And board, if you haven't seen board before, board is basically everyone gets to implement a little HTML window front page thing that everyone can see. It is based on your pals list, so it subscribes to pals and pulls all its information that way. But for everyone, it just stores simple HTML. And actually, board.html is a bunch of JavaScript to grab each one of those that it's going to be handed and go ahead and render them. But the main thing we care about is board.hoon. The state for each of these is a bunch of boards. Boards are, I believe, just HTML. I think it sanitizes as well. Yeah, what does it call a board? It's a map from ship to board is boards, and then a board is content, which is a chord. It's expected to be HTML, and then a background color and a text color, which are also set whenever you do this, right? So if you go in here and you click edit my board, then it lets you change things. And so both of those values get associated with it as well. Right. So board, yeah, regular, we're just passing in these values, registering for PALs. We should do a build party on like a PALs integration someday. I don't think we've done one in here yet. Did we do a PALs integration? I know there's one in Flappy Bird. Did we do Flappy Bird in App Workshop? We must have done that in the first lesson, now that I'm thinking about it. So we did see a little bit of PALs integration. Switching it to be like a squad integration would be a good exercise as well. All right, handle HTTP. Someone posts, then you handle action. If someone gets, then you just redirect them to whatever interface that they're interested in. Now I'm curious because he says there's a state here. Okay, so there is a supported state page that is a rather a mess. What's this right here? So NJS, the tail of my state. Yep, just spit out all my information. Yeah, there's our JavaScript handlers. Not to critique Handful's code, which is fine too much. As a design pattern, I've become a fan of putting the JSON handlers in a library file. So then you have your JSON handlers in a library file. You have your marks refer to that library file to do any JSON unwrapping. And then in your app file, your agent file, you never touch JSON directly at all. It all happens through the medium of the mark. Edit board, yeah, put by boards, and then give a fact board out to everyone that you've changed your info. And then on agent has two kinds. One is a PALS stuff, and one of them is boards in. Someone has given me an update. Let's see. I'm sending this on board out. Where's board out? Oh, board out is on watch. Okay. So if I receive something board out, then I give a board update to myself. No. What does board out come through on watch? I guess that's because that's our okay, there's someone subscribed to us. Okay, and then we're sending them our current board state. Okay, that's what's going on. That's what's going on. But then where else is board out used? So they watch board out. And then when they kick, we handle the kick because we don't want the kick to just fail. We want to retry once. Okay, on init, we watch board out. Handle action, follow. Okay. All right, so that one anyway is kind of a moderately straightforward. We're storing people's text, and if it's valid HTML, it will just render as such. I like how my colors got reset there because of something I was mucking around with. Anyway, and then the other one, well, I'd had post as a possibility. I'm gonna defer on post because I want to talk about post in the context of solid state subscriptions later. But it does use Rudder. Post is the solid state subscriptions example Twitter clone written using solid state subscriptions. So we'll defer that to a future build party and get into solid state subscriptions in more detail there. So that gives us these agents as our basis here. The bits that we needed to talk about today. Now, one thing to address then is if we are going to make App Workshop a standing project, like a standing event, I think I'm still going to go ahead and treat this first one as a cohort. So those of you who are participating and are going to submit a project as a capstone project will get a Gora for that. I think after this first cohort, I may not issue more Gora, so you might have the ultra rare Pepe of Gore in that regard. I think most of the things that are good capstone projects for App Workshop would make good bounty proposals. So I think it's also worth going to urbit.org/grants or grants@urbit.org and putting it forward. You know, here's this thing I did. It is useful on Urbit. It does this cool stuff. Can I get a star or two for it? You know, it's worth a shot, right? But I think the kinds of things that I've seen people talking about building are generally useful in that regard. Nominally, our completion deadline is July 1st. So send me a GitHub or email me, neil@urbit.org or whatever, and we will get that registered and get you an App Workshop Gora as a result of that. And then if we keep doing different content, I'm sure, well, I mean, I see names on here. I know who all of you are, basically. I see you around the network. So I guess we're, unlike Hoon School or App School, we're kind of not ending, right? This is the last one, but it's not really the last one. We're actually going to keep this going in some form or other. So hope to see you around at those as well.